People here.
Okay, great. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. This is Sparking Change and Overcoming Barriers to Children and Youth Cycling. Our speakers today are going to be Gabrielle Rossi from Girls and Gears, Jeremy Blizard from Free Bikes for Kids Morgantown, Vicky also from Free Bikes for Kids Morgantown, and myself from League of American Bicyclists. Just a few housekeeping notes first. The session is being recorded so that we can upload it later on YouTube. All attendees are muted, as you can see. Please try to, keep yourself muted to the question portion of the session. You can type your questions into the Zoom chat, but we won't get to them till the end. So I would just try to refrain from putting in questions until we get to that portion. Closed captions are available and they can be turned on or off at any time. You're going to click the live transcript in the lower navigation bar and then hide subtitle or show subtitle. And I ask that you please enter your name and pronouns into your Zoom name box if you haven't done that already. And also, if you'd like to introduce yourself, you can type it into the chat, your name and your organization that you're with. And I encourage you to also, join the conversation online with Bike Summit 23. So first, I'm going to go over the League's Community Spark Grant Program. That's what the session is mostly going to be surrounded around. We're going to have two of the recipients of last year's session presenting today. So what's the League Spark Grant Program? This is our seed funding to help communities spark change around increasing opportunities for healthy and active ways to get around. It's our first ever community grant program. So this is our first time that we're able to directly fund projects going on in communities. And last year, we awarded 11 organizations $1,500 towards their innovative bike-related projects. But this year, we want to expand it even further, and we're awarding 18 organizations $1,500 each to improve their communities through biking and innovative projects. Sorry, can I pass? So how do you know if your project qualifies? So you can see a list of the qualifying projects here. Basically, one-time events, series of events, any educational awareness programs, pop-up events, placemaking, tactical urbanism, end of trip facilities, bike audits, bike counts, bike surveys, basically many different methods that you can go about for projects, but you'll know whether or not they're qualified when you go to the application. And one of the things that we'd like to really focus on in terms of projects and who will be awarded are ones that feature new perspectives that focus on issues faced by people from ethnic or racial minority groups, and or include authentic engagement with the community. So last year's winners, like I said, we awarded 11 organizations, and they came from a large geographical, background all across the country. And a lot of these projects, like I said, have a unique aspect to them or just, benefit their community in some way to get people moving. Some projects have, engagement aspects that, are things that we really like to see people doing in their community. For example, Bicycle Oven Company in Charlotte, North Carolina, they're doing a program where they're working with physicians who are talking to seniors who may not know that cycling is a good low impact way to exercise, even if they have, bad knees or injuries that might prevent them from doing other forms of exercise. So just innovative programs like that, where you're really reaching out through the community and just building more ways to get people on bikes. Those are the kind of projects that we're funding through the Community Spark Grant. And in a minute, we'll get to two of our 2022 Community Spark Grant winners, Girls and Gears and Free Bikes for Kids Morgantown. But again, I just wanted to mention the fact that the Community Spark Grant program is open now through April 7th. So if you'd like to put in your applications, you can go to apply.bikeleague.org/spark. And I'll be dropping the link in the chat at the end of the presentation. as well as information on last year's winners and more on the application process this year. And I also would like to say that right now we have about 11 applications and more pending. So there's a really good chance for you to receive the award if you apply. Okay, so now I'm going to stop sharing my screen and going to hand it over to Girls in Gears. One second.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Gabby. I am the founder and executive director of Girls in Gear. We're a nonprofit program that blends social emotional learning and bike riding for girls ages 5 and up. So I'm happy to share a little bit about what we do, how we do it, and how money from our Sparks grant is helping us continue our mission and organization of making biking accessible to all girls of all abilities. And so just to give you a brief overview, we like to say we teach life skills through bike skills, and we do this through an 8-week curriculum that we present in the fall and the spring, along with one-day learn to ride clinics. Each curriculum is developed to blend social emotional learning and age-appropriate bike riding skills in a way that uses biking as a platform for bigger lessons that teach us more about ourselves and how we interact with the world around us. And so we do this all because I'm sure like everyone on this call, on this Zoom right now, know that and can relate to a personal experience or time in your life where you use biking or found biking to be an entryway in to learning about yourself and how you interact with the people and the places around you, and how biking has shown you more about resiliency, grit, determination, thoughtful leadership, kindness, compassion, inner strength, or whatever it may be. And so in a lot of ways, we're not a biking program at all. I always like to say we're actually a confidence building program, and that we use biking as a means of getting into those lessons, those skills with our girls. And so we do this all through an 8-week season, like I said, that we run in the fall and the spring. We have 4 different curriculums, one for girls ages 5 to 7, one for girls ages 8 to 10, 11 to 13, and then 14 and up. And so each of those age groups meets in groups of usually 5 to 20 girls once a week for 75 to 90 minutes. They're all led by volunteer coaches, 2 to 4 volunteer coaches per site, where they go through our 8-week curriculum. And so for the youngest girls, they have lessons on active listening, expectation setting, choosing our friends, and those are related to bike skills like getting on and off your bike, safe braking, biking with other people. And they do that through games and activities with a wide range of abilities. So we have balance bikes and tricycles and 2 wheels. The 8 to 10-year-old girls move into lessons on stretching outside your comfort zone, learning parts of the bike, and they start to go out on group rides together. The 11 to 13-year-olds tackle topics like resiliency, grit, determination, and they learn about leading group rides and being leaders within their own rights in their communities, what happens when you fall off your bike and how that can be really scary. And then our 14 plus, our teenage girls, have a whole curriculum where grit is the consistent thread that's woven through the curriculum. And they talk about goal planning and route mapping, expectation setting, and the like. And we are all abilities. I like to say we have built a program and an organization that anyone can take part in. And so we are non-competitive. There are many, many, many wonderful competitive bike programs, competitive mountain biking programs, competitive road biking programs, competitive programs for girls, but we are a non-competitive road program. And so we have balance bikes, tricycles, recumbent bikes, adult tricycles, all sizes, all ranges, with the idea that we want to break down barriers of access to biking. And so this is an overview of the girls that we work with, and like I said, a recap of the ages and the lessons that we cover. We also do one-day learn to ride clinics, or learn to ride clinics. The idea being we never want to set up the expectation or any sort of additional pressure about learning to ride a bike. And so our learn to rides are 2 hours, again, just for girls, where we go through the steps of learning how to learn how to ride a bike. And so core to our organization and the work that we do is our no questions asked scholarship policy. As a society, we imbue so much on top of biking, what it means to be a biker, who can be a biker, what you need to look like, what your bike needs to look like, what language you need to know. But at the end of the day, biking is just a means of getting from one place to another. And everything else we ascribe to that is just superfluous. And so we have a very robust system of bike collection services. And so anyone who applies for any of our programs has access to a no questions asked scholarship policy where they can pay as much or as little of our registration fee as they feel comfortable. We also offer fully subsidized programming in communities and schools. And then in addition to that, anyone who needs a bike receives one, no questions asked. And so we do that by working with various organizations, collecting bikes from the community that then get either tuned up, fixed up, or whatever it may be from a bike shop, and then donated out to the girls and then the school participants or whoever it may be. And those are their bikes to keep along with a new helmet, with the idea being that once girls learn to confidently and safely bike through life in our program, there's no saying how far they'll go, and they'll be able to continue to do so. So in 2022, our scholarship rate was 42%. So 42% of our participants, and we have programming across New Jersey, Pennsylvania, the greater DC area, so Maryland, DC, proper Arlington, the Arlington area, down to Richmond, down to Williamsburg and Eastern Virginia, and then out to Cleveland. So 42% of our riders across our demographic received a scholarship in the form of a bike, a helmet, or a financial scholarship in 2022. And our goal is 50% by 2025. And so our Spark grant is obviously hugely helpful in that. So that funding is going towards supporting subsidized programming in Newark, New Jersey, where we're working with the Boys and Girls Club. And so we're hosting a site with them for our spring season, which starts in just a few weeks at this point. And so there's so much to be said about the importance of why biking matters. Many studies have shown and anecdotally have shown that cost and safety are the biggest barriers of entry when it comes to cycling and being able to move freely through communities, specifically for low-income communities and specifically for communities of color. And so streets in low-income communities where it is often cited that is too dangerous and too costly to either bike or walk are the ones that could most benefit from being able to move freely on two wheels. And so why do we do any of this? The long and short of it is that it's very hard to be an adolescent girl in the world these days. Some might say harder than ever. And the drop in confidence that comes through adolescence, specifically through the middle school years, is astonishing. Girls are continuously questioned for who they are and why they are and what they stand for and why they stand for it. And then they're continuously told to take up more space, to be smaller and be quieter. And with that rise in self-doubt comes a significant drop in physical activity levels for those girls in terms of how quickly they drop out of organized sports, citing reasons of, misunderstanding their sense of self, changing bodies, not feeling accepted in traditional sports communities. But fortunately, there's been much research that shows that physical activity levels and being in an environment where you can freely move your body and celebrate it for what it is directly connected to increased levels of self-esteem. And so that's where Girls in Gear comes in as a non-competitive program. We find that when girls learn to ride their bike, change a flat tire, lead a group ride, just build that physical strength, they're also learning about internal strength, inner strength, self-reliance, innate leadership potential, whatever it may be. And so the idea being that riders can take the skills they learn on their bikes and apply them off their bikes. All of our curriculums are grounded in social and emotional learning best practices. And that really sets us apart from most bike programs in that we follow best practices around youth development, emphasizing that nurturing those internal strengths and abilities within children now builds their confidence, decision-making skills, self-management, self-awareness, and other aptitudes needed to flourish throughout life. So in a lot of ways, we're preventing negative behaviors that come with a questioning sense of self and body as we continue to go through life. And so this is one of my favorite stories that shows a little bit about who we are and what we do. And so Juanita was 7 when she came to us. She emigrated from Uruguay to New Jersey with her mom. Juanita did not speak any English, but was a very fervent, passionate little bike rider. And her mom found out about us through a local newspaper who did a story on us. And the relationship that she built with her coaches and the other riders through some rough translating made such a big difference, as you can see, as Juanita's mom shared this story with us about how just having a consistent presence in her life, small interventions of having positive role models in a space where Juanita could try new things and stretch outside her comfort zone and do something even if it was a little scary at first, made such a big difference in her life. And spoiler alert, this is Juanita cruising on her bike that we got her for. And she wrote this adorable note, which is perfect because it's all my favorite things about Girls in Gear too. And again, she knew no English when she started with us, and she wrote this letter 8 weeks later. But her 7 best things about Girls in Gear is riding our bikes, being all friends, doing everything together, decorating our bikes, being all girls, learning new things, and then meeting new people. And so that perfectly sums up everything we try to do and want to do and continue to do across all of our communities. This season, we have over 300 volunteer coaches who are currently being trained in the last few weeks and the next few weeks to be able to go out and confidently deliver our Girls in Gear curricula, across the country at this point, and be role models and life changers to girls like Juanita. And by having this consistent presence and having the consistent role models that our coaches are provides such a world of difference, because when you're able to take the skills you learn on your bike around and the assurance that comes with being able to move your body through the world and take that to school and to your friends and to the great big opportunities that come before you, there's truly no saying how far you'll go. And so it's a little bit about us. If you're interested about learning more about Girls in Gear, starting Girls in Gear in your community, getting involved, you can always reach out. We're at girlsingear.org. You can send me an email, Gabrielle@girlsingear.org. And then we're also on Facebook and Instagram at Girls in Gear. So that's what I got.
Thank you.
Of course.
So now we'll go to Free Bikes for Kids Morgantown.
Sorry, I'm having a second trying to get this screen to share. There we go. Everybody can see?
Yep.
We are Free Bikes for Kids Morgantown. We're here to tell you a little bit about what we do and how we used our Community Spark grant.
Who we are, we have I'm Jeremy Blizard. I do media outreach and transport. This is Jacob.
I work on grant writing and graphics, and we have 2 other board members who aren't presenting with us today. Will is our volunteer mechanic. He is amazing. And Jessica helps, she's a bike coach for NICA, and she also helps us with networking. So we have 4 board members with various professional backgrounds that come together to run Free Bikes for Kids. West Virginia, Morgantown.
So what we do is basically we collect bicycles from the community. We take them in, free of charge, obviously. We repair and refurbish them using either donated parts or, parts that we purchase with grants. And sometimes we get bikes donated through like Strider bikes and such. After we repair and refurbish them, we donate them to children in need, typically through partner organizations instead of just to ourselves directly, unless we're at the farmer's market. But
we give bikes not just to kids, but also to
Yeah.
adults who need them. Anybody who doesn't have a car or needs it to get to work, to grocery, things like that. Went backwards. What's going on here? Okay, so we have several community partners established. These are all organizations that help low-income families or kids specifically. They're not all in our county or our city, they're around. And then we also partner with WVU Medicine Children's. They provide helmets without charge and safety literature, which we are then able to distribute along with the free bikes. And so far we're operating off of grants and donations.
More
It's-
grants than donations.
It's tricky because, you know, we're a nonprofit and we're not generating any income. We've sold exactly 3 adult bikes so far at $50 each at the farmers market. And we're looking for a more regular source of revenue to keep things moving, but we're hanging. And inclusivity is really important to our organization. I care about green space access for everybody, and having a bike is part of that. And we really think it's important that low-income families not be priced out of biking as a hobby for their kids. If you look at the lists, West Virginia is often on the bottom for economics, for health outcomes, and our organization is trying to meet that gap. So we're looking to lower barriers. And it's not just low-income families, you know, minorities are underrepresented in biking, trans kids are underrepresented in biking. And we feel it's important to have good role models in all these areas. So we updated our graphic here, our logo. When the local high school banned pride flags on campus, we stepped up with this new logo, and also gave our 100th bike to a leader of the local trans community, which felt really good.
And in terms of our growth, our 12-month goal was to give away 75 bikes when we started in November of when we incorporated November of 21, and we far surpassed that right off the bat. Basically, we mostly got started in June of 22, and by Christmas of 22, we had given away 174 bikes and taken in 277 bikes from the community. And WU Medicine Children's had given away 74 helmets with us, mostly through the farmers market and other local events. And at that time, we were working out of our technician Will's shed, which is not very spacious. So with the increased need, we had to upgrade, and we were granted a space in the old Woodburn Community Center
Through the city.
In November of
Yeah.
last year.
So it'll be a huge change for us.
Mhm.
We also late last summer, I think it was August, toward the end of the season, but we established a presence at the farmers market, which was one of the best things we ever did, because the farmers market has SNAP benefits. So you already have low income families coming here for healthy food. Now you're giving them an opportunity to pick up a bike while they're there for free. And so we got a lot of interest in this, just having a presence week to week. It also gave us a public place where people could drop off bikes. You know, Will's shed has been great, but he lives on a rural road, and a West Virginia rural road can look like something out of a horror movie if you're not familiar. So it was great to have a public, you know, parking lot type space. So we were at the front of the farmers market for weeks and weeks, got a lot of bikes donated there, had a lot of bikes move out, and we're able to have volunteers join us and tinker with the bikes even on site. This is Will's mother-in-law helping us as a volunteer on the bottom left. So we mentioned the working space. Will's shed isn't climate controlled and is just big enough for Will to work in. And it worked at first, but it ran out of space quickly as we started to accumulate bikes that needed more than a little love to get going. And so at this point, we're working out of, it's about 500 square feet. It's a space in the basement of the community center.
And these pictures are just us moving in.
Yeah. It's more crowded now, but it does give operating space to have volunteers. Again, it's a public working space, you know, not somebody's private residence. And so it gives us a chance to integrate volunteers into the program this spring as we get going again in the summer. We found that there was a peak around Christmas and then a lull right after because people gave away the old bikes. And then, you know, it'll be spring again before we get going much.
And so it comes to why we needed the Community Spark grant, was transporting bikes. Basically, we initially wanted we asked for a 7 bike rack through the Community Spark grant, and soon realized that we needed to transport more bikes than that, because as you can see in this picture here of Will's truck, that's 36 bikes that we got from his brother's establishment called Chicago Working Bikes. That's 560 miles he traveled with those in that exact formation. And so we needed to transport more bikes in bulk because we're working in more counties than just one, more areas than just one. And so we thought, oh, we'll get a bigger rack. That way we can do it because we don't all have trucks. And
We needed more than a rack.
we needed more than a rack eventually. So what we did is we started to raise money through an online fundraiser to try to buy a van. Any kind of van. We didn't care, you know, what it looked like. So during that fundraiser, which managed to raise $645, $685, something like that, we were donated a van, and in lieu of having to buy one.
We were excited because we thought we could totally DIY this. It had some visible rust, some vinyl that needed to get removed, but it had really low miles. It was just the right size. You know, the Ford Econoline series is what every contractor uses, it seems like. And so we were super excited at first until we drove it, and
Yeah,
the mirror fell off, and then brick-sized chunks of rust. I was following the van when Jeremy was driving it, and you know, pieces of the frame are dropping off onto the road.
and it was terrifying to drive.
Tires were bald. We sent these pictures to body shops and they wouldn't call us back. And we realized that we couldn't handle the repairs on this. So we had to come up with a new plan.
And the new plan was to readjust what we needed to do. And we realized we no longer needed a 7 rack. We needed a new van. And so after switching gears there with the Community Spark grant, we got the $1,500 to put toward the van. The $645 from that community fundraiser that we initially ran for a van, and then $635 out of pocket.
You said the purchase price that had originally been listed at $4,000.
Yeah, it was over $4,000 that they were wanting for the van. And after we told them what we did and what we were using the van for, they dropped it down to $2,000. And that helped greatly helped.
So you can picture, this is how many bikes we gave to Preston County, the county next door. So you can see how having a van of this size rather than how many trips that would be with the 7 rack. I can't even count right now. But it really made a difference for getting bikes in and around. So at this point, you know, we incorporated or made our nonprofit as Free Bikes for Kids Morgantown, part of the Morgantown City Youth Cycling Coalition Pilot City program, where we have these 10 different youth cycling organizations getting going in one town at the same time to see what happens. So we stepped up to be the local leads for that. But we registered as Free Bikes for Kids Morgantown. We really should have been Free Bikes for Kids West Virginia, because we're already serving Monongalia and Preston counties, and we've built these partnerships with 7 other counties that we're looking to get bikes to this summer. And so we have space, we have partnerships around the state. Where our next steps are to find a more regular supplier of bike parts. That's been actually a big obstacle right now with the pandemic supply issues. But you've reached out to some bike shops lately.
Yeah, I reached out to some bike shops about parts because we've really had a difficult time finding parts. And I've received word back from 3 of them already that are willing to help us with what they can. A lot of bike shops that I've talked to have, you know, given me the same, you know, the parts that we have left over are not viable parts typically. So what we're doing is we've been offered, you know, wholesale prices, things like that. And so any kind of help that we can get, we're willing to take.
And the other thing we're working on is a more steady revenue source, because, sorry, that's my kid coming in from being on wheels. A more steady revenue source, because we're working off of grants and they come in and they go, but we need like a corporate sponsor or additional regular grants to get going. But that's our presentation. If you have any questions, we are now ready for the questions portion of this.
Thank you. Yeah, so you can drop your questions in the chat if you have any. And I will ask them to our presenters.
I have a question for Gabby.
Okay.
How long has you been going as Girls in Gears? Because it's an impressive number of places you are active.
We're good. Sorry, I was having trouble with my video. Oh, there we go. We've been starting this is our third year of programming. So we're going into our 6th season.
We saw our lives flash before our eyes when you said all the places you were active. Like, uh-oh.
Yeah, this is our 6th season of programming. Is the question about the donated bikes for us or for free bikes?
Oh, I think that's probably for either of us. I'll just speak for free bikes for kids. We take parts off. So a donated bike usually got donated for a reason. So it's not like we have 100 donated bikes sitting around. Some of them have been used for parts. Some of them parts that get recycled, you know, the wheel size isn't standard, and so we can't use that wheel, but we can use the brakes off of it, or you know, something else off of it. So our mechanic really gets a kick out of deciding which bikes get fixed in entirety and which get used for parts, and then
Whatever's left over, it's
Yep.
too rusted or too damaged or
Yeah.
whatever, then we actively recycle it.
but it gets recycled one way or the other.
Mm.
And then we have another question: is free bikes for kids and girls in gear your respective full-time jobs, or how do you balance your work and youth with other obligations? That's a great question, because it's definitely not.
Yeah.
I'm a full-time professor of landscape architecture at West Virginia University. Jeremy runs a electronics recycling nonprofit, which is how he stepped up, because it is still recycling. You know, you're still getting things from the community and recycling them. But it's been a time crunch at times. It's nice having a board of people who do different things at different times. So our mechanic is a retired research assistant, and so he loves the tinkering with the bikes time. Without him, we wouldn't work.
Jessica's a teacher.
She's a teacher, so she's always involved with kids, and it's really great to see the bikes in and out, you know, and the new partnerships she helps us develop. But the answer is with a team, because we needed a strong board with different strengths to make this happen. And that's how we operate. How about Girls in Gear?
So we have a part-time staff of 8, and then we have a national board that we have people who sit really all over the country, even when we don't have programming. And then we also have regional boards that are situated within each like smaller community where we have programming. So we have like a New Jersey one, a DC one, an Eastern Virginia one, a Philly one, etc. And so our staff is mostly part-time. I also just finished up a PhD program, and also I'm college professor. So that's how I kind of balance things. So there's a little bit of flexibility there. And then we don't repair our bikes. That all gets outsourced to local bike shops who donate their services. So they just do the same thing. They recycle the parts or donate them. There's a couple like recycle bicycle organizations that we work with around all the different program areas.
Thank you. Okay, great questions. I actually had one for Free Bikes for Kids Morgantown. I'm just wondering what opportunities you've seen or know of for organizations like yourself to work with schools in terms of breaking down income barriers for children.
One of the things our board member Jessica does, you know, she's a NICA coach, but she's also teaching a bike class at her middle school. And so, you know, they're working on getting the bike shed going with the bikes in the shed. And it's so great to have this like teacher connection. I would encourage school teachers especially to get involved, even if they don't want to lead a chapter. They can at least help us put in touch with people who might need a bike or be interested in a bike.
And another thing is we're part of the YCC, the Youth Cycling Coalition, which is 10 groups that come together, and one of them is Project Bike Tech, and they just put a class in up at the one of the local high schools that we're going to be working with to help with that.
They have a 10 workstation fix it where high school kids are learning to fix bikes, and they'll be fixing our bikes eventually. Right now they're starting on the Giants that were donated, but it's really fun to see how the teachers can play a role in interfacing with these groups because people haven't necessarily heard of us, and just being able to send people, you know, if you need a bike, go down to the farmer's market, you can pick one up or ask for it, request one.
Great, thank you. And sorry, I'm just going to ask the follow-up. How do you follow up with participants of your programs?
With the Woodburn, one of the conditions of the city space was to document. We were already registering like who took the bikes and signed a release form, but now we're going to document income level better and kind of see what happens later.
Because that's part of the
That's part of the
grant
grant that
requirement.
they do with the nonprofit. How about Gabby? You have a response to that?
Yeah, in terms of follow-up, so we do pre and post attitudinal surveys that are connected to our social emotional learning curriculum to understand how well we do what we think we do. And then we also do site visits during the season to visit with coaches and girls and see how they're doing. And then we do focus groups with the coaches at the end of every season to understand what can be improved upon. And so we just released for the spring season the second version of our curriculum. And so we have all new curriculum, and that's based on feedback and surveys and observational data from having presented the previous iteration of our curriculum for the last 2 years.
And then we have 2 more questions in chat about Earn a Bike, basically. There's some really great programs around that do this. There's one in Indianapolis. I think it's called freewheeling, where the kids actually build their bikes out of the junk pile and then they kind of assemble what they want. We haven't started that yet, but we're excited to add it into what we do now that we have a working space, because now we can get volunteers into an actual, neutral community center space to work on the bikes.
I've also been interested in the doing the Earn a Bike kind of thing through the recovery services around here. So people can once they complete their recovery, then they're able to get a bike so they can commute to work.
Yeah, we have a new sobering house and warming shelter and shelter. It's like 3 miles south of downtown. And so getting there has been an issue. And so we're trying to work bikes into this for people who don't have cars. I love this suggestion on the chat where they ask people who want to sell a bike, they leave $10 to the organization that sells it. Like, that's a good idea for us. We might be able to to help with, because we have a website presence and people keep an eye on what bikes are for sale. But that would also give us more visibility on the bikes for sale, because I think that's how most of these organizations fund themselves, is by selling the good bikes. We end up giving most of them away anyway, because somewhere there's someone who needs it before we get a different one in. But it's a great model to think about how you can get revenue. So I appreciate that suggestion from chat.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to thank both of our groups for presenting today and talking to us about what they're doing with their Spark grants. And I'm going to drop in the chat a link to the application so that anyone who wants to go check it out and hopefully apply can do so. And thank you, Henry, for dropping that in there. Yes, the Youth Bike Summit, please attend. Right. And if anybody has any last minute questions, you can drop them in the chat. We'll wait a minute for that.
I just want to say thank you to the League of American Bicyclists for helping us get wheels. We couldn't do what we were doing out of Will's truck much longer.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Great. Yes, thank you for what you do. Okay, well, if we don't have any more questions, I will let everyone go. And I would encourage you to attend to 2 o'clock session, which is with the National Youth Bike Council. And that is a youth-led cycling organization. And they're going to be doing a presentation on, engaging youth and what youth serving organizations can hopefully implement into their programs. Okay, thank you. And have a good rest of the summit.